In today's video, I'm gonna be talking about Amid Clouds and Bones, a romantasy standalone by Ella Fields. And let me start by saying that this book was a wild ride for me. I had so many ups and downs while reading it. I loved it, then I was frustrated, then I loved it again. We will talk about it. Ella Fields, you made me suffer, but I loved it. I loved it. It was a book that I really enjoyed. A little bit of context first. I saw this book in BookTok and Bookstagram recommended by many different accounts that I follow. And it was not one of these overly hyped books that you see everywhere, like everyone reading it, but it came often enough that it piqued my curiosity. And what drew me to add it to my TBR is that this is a standalone romantasy. This is such a rare thing, I feel. As much as I love a romantasy saga that has 4, 5, 8, 10 books, sometimes I do not have the brain power for it. Like, I need something easy to read, a fun, quick read. And if you follow my channel, you might have noticed that I love theorizing and coming up with predictions for future books within a saga. So sometimes my brain needs to rest and I just want a quick story set within a fantasy world that wraps in one book without complex or crazy world building, just a plain, simple, fun, entertaining fantasy romance. And they are hard to come by. So when I saw that Amid Clouds and Bones was recommended as a romantasy standalone, it went directly to my TBR, and the time has finally come when I've read it. I have also read a few other romantasy standalones. Again, there's not that many, at least not that I have found yet, but I am compiling a list because I think this would be very interesting. So I will make a video whenever that list is long enough. So far I have a few. If you have recommendations for romantasy standalones, please let me know in the comments because I would love to read them. So when last month I was in the mood for reading a standalone romance, this was the selected read, and I went in more or less blind. I was not sure what this was about. The cover and the title do not give anything away. Not that they usually do in romantasies, to be honest. They are a bit abstract or similar sounding, but I went in completely blind. I had no idea what this book was about. I read the blurb prior to starting the book in order to get a little bit of context. And that's when I found out that this book was about an arranged marriage. And I love arranged marriages in fantasy settings, especially when they are born from the need to create alliances between rival kingdoms, between sworn enemies to create some sort of peace between them. I love it. And this book had it, and this book delivered it. Let me tell you, if you like that trope, you are gonna enjoy this book. And if you love enemies to lovers, but sometimes you find that books that are thrown into the category of enemies to lovers are a little bit mild on the enemy side, you might like this book because they are true enemies. They are from rival kingdoms, they are different species, so their animosity is somewhat justified, but it was good. I liked it. Also because there is this arranged marriage situation that both characters find themselves in, there is the element of forced proximity. And while this is not exactly a slow burn, I love slow burn, and it's usually one of my favorite categories within romance. Slow burn with a lot of tension and angst. It can be slow burn for books. I don't mind it. This book is not it. It's not slow burn, but it still didn't feel like super rushed. Like, I still enjoyed it. And I'm not someone who likes, you know, this kind of instant love type of books. And this was not an instant love situation. As I said, it was like an enemies to lovers, like a real enemies to lovers. But it's not exactly a slow burn, so keep that in mind. It is a slow burn in regards to the actual feelings of the characters, in the way that the relationship matures, but not in regards to the romance and the passion. Also in this book you will find fae, humans, dragons, and other mystical creatures. And other than this, there is a different trope that a lot of people love, including myself. I love that trope, but I am not gonna tell it to you because for me this trope is a spoiler. You can imagine what it might be, but I'm not gonna say anything. I want you, if you read this book, to discover it yourself, because this is a trope that is usually revealed within the third act, and for me those things are massive spoilers. You need to discover it yourself, but there will be a small surprise for you in terms of the romance, a good type of surprise. So who's this book for? If you want a romantasy standalone with true enemies to lovers, arranged marriage, forced proximity, and fae, this might be the book for you. Especially if you like villainous, morally grey MMCs. In this case, he was a bit on the meaner side, which only accentuated the enemies to lovers even more. So if you like that, this might be for you. Now, what is this book about? Without giving too much away. This book follows Mildred, one of the daughters of the Human King. Mildred has a sister which will become the future queen of the humans. So herself, she has not that much responsibility. She is next in line after her sister, but she doesn't have the same level of responsibility as her sister. And Mildred is half human and half fae, which also creates a little bit of tension within the human court because the king had something with a fae. So Mildred has spent all her childhood and most of her life keeping to herself, hiding in the shadows, and letting the spotlight fall entirely on her sister, the future queen. Now, in this world, we have humans living with fae, and there's two types of fae. There's the Seelie and the Unseelie. The Seelie fae are those that are believed to be more benevolent, while the Unseelie fae are typically believed to be more dark and mean. This is not unique to this story. If you've read enough fae novels, you know that this Seelie versus Unseelie is a constant dynamic, a constant struggle between the same kind, and comes from folklore. And basically, these three species, or these three kingdoms, have been living with a lot of tension throughout the years, and there have been conflicts that have led to wars. But because of the darker nature of the Unseelie fae, the humans and the Seelie fae find a common ground, find a common enemy that they both want to defeat. And they create an alliance by arranging a marriage between this princess from the human world, this half fae, half human princess, Mildred, and the son of the Seelie king. This marriage is supposed to represent this alliance of the humans and the Seelies against a common enemy, the Unseelies. And it's a marriage that has been agreed since both the princess and the prince were children. So it has been a long time coming. And the book starts when Mildred is, I believe, around 10 years old, and the male lead, which we need to talk about as well, named Atakan, the Heartless. Do with that information what you will, but you already have a hint when he is called the Heartless. I believe he is a few years older than her. Yes, I just checked, and he is 15 years old when they are meeting for the first time, when the deal has been sealed. So they have a 5-year gap. And something that I loved about this book is that when it starts and it introduces us to this arranged situation since childhood, it reminded me so much to The Swan Princess, which was one of my favorite movies when I was a child, because it has a very similar situation in which in each chapter in the beginning of the book, we have the princess and the prince meeting every few years as they keep growing up, and making that hate or animosity towards each other build up until the point where they actually have to live together and get married. So I love that. The book doesn't start right in the arranged marriage. It starts with Mildred, 10 years old, Atakan, 15, then it continues to Mildred, 13 or 14, and then he's 18, 19, and so on. It keeps dragging until they are both of age, until she's, I believe, 18 or 19, and he is then 24, 25. And to me, those chapters in the beginning of the book were such a great build-up. Every time they met, their interactions were just so fun because they kept playing games with each other, and the next time the stakes would be higher and the games would be more ruthless, and the animosity would just grow and grow and grow until the dreaded moment when they actually have to live together and eventually marry. And by the way, now that I said the dreaded moment, Dread is his nickname for her. Atakan calls Mildred Dread. This is as much as I'm gonna say about the plot. I don't wanna give anything away anymore. If this caught your attention, go ahead and read it and enjoy it. But if you do, hold on a second. There's a warning that I need to give you. And this is also what I was referring to when I said, Ella feels you made me suffer. This is because, and it also says so in the blurb, at some point in the story, something happens. I'm not gonna say what, but something happens, and the book takes a turn and something changes. And you might think that at that point, the story will derail. Perhaps you don't like that twist or that turn. I personally was a bit taken back by that turn, like, what just happened? And I didn't know where the story was going from there. And I feared it was going into a direction that I do not like. But let me tell you, and this is why I want to warn you, do not worry. If you liked the arranged marriage sort of situation with Atakan, and you get to a point and you wonder, is this gonna keep going like this? Is this gonna change? Do not worry. You will be pleased by the end if you liked the part with the arranged marriage. If you didn't like it, then I don't know. You decide. But if you were really enjoying that, and then something happens and you find yourself not enjoying something or predicting that something else might happen, I'm just gonna tell you, if you are thinking at that point, should I DNF? No, continue. Because I almost DNF'd, because I had the same thoughts. I almost DNF'd because I was like, no, please don't tell me this is going into that direction, but it was not. It was just a product of my imagination, and in the end, the whole story, it went in the direction that I wanted to. And I was completely happy and satisfied when the story ended. So this is just a warning. I'll just throw it out there. So my overall impressions of the book. The book is divided in 3 parts. Again, I'm not gonna say what those are because they have a certain meaning, but I will say that I love the book as a whole. I was 100% invested in the first part. I was riding such a high. I was just enjoying myself so much with the relationship of the main characters, with the dynamics, with the Fae and the humans and everything. I was interested and I was invested. Then, as I said in my warning, something happens, the book switches to part 2. It basically took a 180 turn, it took a sharp left, and I was left like, what? And it kind of felt to me as though someone had dropped a bucket of cold water because I was riding such a high from the first part of the book. I was like loving it. I was like, if this continues like this is gonna be a 5-star read to me. Like, I love it. But then it took this turn and I got scared because it was unexpected. And I didn't know at that point where the story would go. And I didn't know if I would see certain people again within the book, and I just got a bit stressed. That's why I say that I suffered a little bit. And that's the point where I went into Goodreads, because I also felt the whole plot kind of changed somewhat with that twist. And I also felt that the first part was just like a crescendo, like going up, 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 up. And when this twist happened, it kind of slowed down the pacing of the book and just was growing very slowly. And it was growing towards a direction that I was not very excited about. So I kept reading to see where it was going, but then I was like, no, please, no, don't tell me it's going that way. And I went to Goodreads because I couldn't keep reading this book if my suspicions were right. Spoiler, they were not, thankfully. But I went to Goodreads to check other people's comments about it, and I saw a lot of people commenting the same and saying that they DNF'd at that point. Mistake, because I think they had the same thought as I did, and perhaps they were not a fan of that either, and they ended up DNFing the book too early. But because I couldn't find any specific mentions of the people who had fully read the book of that specific thing that I was looking for, I thought, okay, I'll continue because it doesn't look like it might go that way. Okay, let's continue. And yes, it eventually, everything just picked up again from where we left it, and it just kept going to the finale. Amazing. I'm gonna insert a spoiler mention here, and you can skip to this point in the video if you don't want to hear this. But if you are wondering what this thing was that made me not want to potentially keep reading, spoiler in 3, 2, 1. Well, I thought this was gonna become a Why Choose novel, and I'm sorry if anyone likes it, no problem, no judgment, nothing, but I don't like them. I like to have one love interest only, and I was so invested in Atakan. I was so into that story. I wanted to see how they would grow and emotionally evolve as characters and their relationship. And suddenly I was thrown completely off, and then she was thrown into this other love story, which didn't feel right. Like, Atakan's story, of course, it's super complicated and was also very, but it just felt like it had the potential and they had the chemistry to keep growing it into something good. But in this case, I was just like, I had no connection to the other Fae. I just remember that he was the king of the Unseelie and that he was a redhead. But already from the beginning, when he had this premise of, I need you to fall in love with me, I was like, how can I fall in love with you if I know that you are doing it for a motive, like for a reason? How could this ever be actually real? There would always be that in the back of your mind, even if they would eventually fall in love. I don't know. I was just not feeling it. I was into Atakan. Why did we move into the other one? So I was very stressed about that. I was just like, please don't tell me that now I'm gonna forget about Atakan and have to focus on this guy that I have no chemistry with. But in the end, it was perfect. Like, I suffered through it, but it was perfect in the end. Everything played out perfect. And then you added the element of betrayal, and betrayal is also something I love in fantasy books. It just makes everything more dramatic, and it just played out super nicely. So when everything happened and everything was righted, the story had a lot of reveals. There were a lot of secrets and things that were brewing that came to light. And oh my God, there was a moment, my favorite moment in the book, which really reminded me of one of my favorite books. I'm not gonna say which one because that might be a spoiler for some of you, as it's something that happens towards the end of said book. But if you've read it, you will get my reference. If I say chapter 54, I've been looking for you, you know what I'm talking about. So there was a moment in this book that reminded me a lot of that. And I ate up every word of it. Everything made sense in the end. Everything came together beautifully in the end. It all wrapped up nicely. And in the end, even though I suffered a little in the middle part, in the end, I think it even made sense and added up to the drama of this book. So I loved it. End of spoiler. Let's continue. Is this a 5-star book for me? Because of that suffering that I had in the middle for quite a long time, I must say, like it was a third of the book, that part that dragged out a little. Because of that, I think I gave this book about 4 stars, but it's there between 4, 4.5 for me. I really liked it, very nice romantasy to read, and for me, 4 stars, when I rate a book 4 stars, it means I really liked it. And again, the reason for it not being 5 was just this part in the middle. Yes, everything wrapped up nicely in the end, but still I suffer for too many pages. I suffer for like 100 or 150 pages. So let's say that this book was 4.5 stars. So I would recommend it. It still goes into my list of favorite books of 2025 so far, because I really enjoyed it and I could see myself reading it again. And I have thought of this book after I read it, which is one of the main signs for me that I've enjoyed a book, when it still follows me around long after I read it. And the book was around 400 pages, so it wasn't super long, but it was good enough to build up the whole world and the whole arranged marriage dynamic, and even to add these different parts and different changes within the plot. So I think it was a good length. Do not expect a complex world building. You are not gonna get it in 400 pages. But it was still really nice and it put me in that fantasy setting, which I liked. Now, what is next from Ella Fields? I didn't know this author. I see on Goodreads that she has 27 published works. And from everything that I've read in her profile, I feel drawn to the book that's called The Savage and the Swan. So because I did like this Amid Clouds and Bones a lot, I'm gonna read The Savage and the Swan for sure. And she also has many other books. I think her most recent book is Amid Clouds and Bones, but she has others like The Deadly Divine, seems to be some sort of duology. Those are from 2023, and she has a lot of others. She has a lot of stuff. But I feel drawn the most to The Savage and the Swan from what I've been able to tell by reading the blurb. It's also a standalone romance, which again, I really appreciate. And this one, I believe it follows shapeshifters and fae. And what really made me add this to my TBR is that it says that it's inspired by Hades and Persephone, Rumpelstiltskin, and the Swan Princess. So the Swan Princess seems to be some sort of inspiration for Ella Fields, and I'm here for that because, as I said, I love that movie. So I was not far off with that reference, and it seems that in this book there will be also something related to that. And Hades and Persephone and Rumpelstiltskin, you've sold me. So when I am in the mood for reading another romantasy standalones, which is quite often, this will be there in the top of my list. I have a few others that I have already purchased, so those might be before this, but it will come. This will have its time, and if I feel like I want to talk about it, I will create another video like this one talking about The Savage and the Swan. So this is it for this video. I hope that you enjoyed it and that you give this book a chance if you liked what I talked about. And if you do, Let me know in the comments what you thought, if you liked it. If you have any other recommendations of standalone romantasies, also let me know in the comments. And I'll see you in the next video.